History is a story with missing pages. You are about to see the evidence. We are exploring 25 archaeological anomalies that continue to challenge modern understanding. And by the end, you will see the human timeline in a completely new light. How did ancient builders achieve precision we struggle to explain today? And why do we keep finding artifacts that seem to belong to a different age entirely? This journey reveals a past far more inventive and mysterious than we were taught. What forgotten chapter of human ambition are we only now beginning to read? That diver's discovery would become one of the most profound puzzles in the history of science. From the depths of a 2,000-year-old shipwreck, a corroded lump of bronze and wood emerged, its secrets locked inside. It looked like nothing more than a piece of sea-encrusted junk, but when researchers finally began to clean it, they saw something impossible. Intricate gear wheels, tiny inscriptions, and graduated dials were revealed, a level of mechanical complexity that simply should not have existed in that era. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device crafted around 100 years before the Common Era, and it represents a staggering leap in human ingenuity. For decades, it sat in a museum, a curious oddity that defied explanation, until modern imaging technology allowed us to peer inside without destroying it. What they found was breathtaking. This was not a simple calendar or a decorative object. It was a precise, hand-cranked astronomical computer. By turning a handle, an ancient user could predict the positions of the sun and moon, track the cycles of the planets known to them, and even forecast lunar and solar eclipses with remarkable accuracy. The device used a system of interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth cut at precise angles, to model the irregular motions of celestial bodies. This kind of differential gearing would not appear again in the historical record until the sophisticated clocks of medieval Europe, over 1,300 years later. Think about that gap, an entire millennium where this knowledge seems to have vanished from the world. How did a society, using the tools and materials of the ancient Mediterranean, conceive of and manufacture such a miniature mechanical universe? The work of historians like Derek de Solla Price, who dedicated his career to decoding the mechanism, shows it was based on advanced Greek astronomical theories. It tells us that the theoretical understanding of the cosmos was matched by an equally sophisticated engineering tradition, one capable of translating complex mathematics into tangible, moving metal. This single artifact shatters the linear narrative of technological progress. It forces a humbling question. If this one device survived by pure chance, buried at the bottom of the sea, what other peaks of ancient science and technology were completely lost to us? The Antikythera Mechanism is not just an anomaly. It is a silent messenger from a past that was far more inventive, more curious, and more technically capable than we ever gave it credit for. It whispers that our ancestors' understanding of their world may have been far deeper than the ruins they left behind suggest. That single device suggests a forgotten library of ancient knowledge. Now picture a document from a much later era, yet one that points to an even more distant and mysterious source. In the year 1513, in the heart of the Ottoman Empire, an admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis compiled a world map on parchment made from gazelle skin. It was a beautiful and detailed work, but its true significance would not be understood for centuries. The map shows coastlines with a startling and controversial precision. We see the western bulge of Africa and the eastern coast of South America rendered with remarkable accuracy for the time, yet the most baffling section lies at the bottom of the page. The map appears to depict the northern coastline of Antarctica, a continent that would not be officially discovered by European explorers for another 300 years. Even more incredibly, the contours of this landmass seem to match the subglacial topography of Antarctica, the shape of the continent hidden beneath miles of ice. This is impossible according to conventional history. How could a 16th century cartographer know the outline of a land buried under an ice sheet for millions of years? Piri Reis himself provided a clue in his extensive notes. He wrote that he compiled his map from many source charts, including some that dated back to the time of Alexander the Great, over 1,800 years prior. He was working from older maps that were themselves copies of even older knowledge. This opens a door to a staggering possibility. The accuracy of the Antarctic coastline suggests it was mapped during a period when it was free of ice. Geological evidence indicates the last time Antarctica was largely ice-free was millions of years ago, long before any known human civilization. So the question becomes, who could have possibly seen and charted that land? The map forces us to reconsider the entire timeline of human exploration and scientific capability. Could there have been a prehistoric seafaring culture possessing advanced knowledge of geometry and navigation that undertook a global survey of the planet? Did their maps survive through copies and fragments, eventually finding their way into the hands of medieval scholars and Renaissance cartographers like Piri Reis? This single artifact challenges the comforting narrative of gradual geographical discovery, the idea that our maps slowly filled in from a blank slate. Instead, it hints at a cycle of knowledge gained, lost, and perhaps rediscovered. The Piri Reis Map is not just an old chart. It is a potential echo from a world before our recorded history, a ghostly outline of a continent that should not be there, asking us who walked its shores when they were warm. The map is a ghost of ancient coastlines, but some mysteries are carved in stone and left in plain sight. In the lush river deltas of Costa Rica during the 1930s, workers clearing land for banana plantations made a startling discovery. As the dense jungle was peeled back, they did not find more trees or rocks, but something entirely unexpected. Scattered across the landscape, half buried in the earth, were enormous, nearly perfect stone spheres. These are the Diquís spheres, created by a pre-Columbian culture over 1,000 years ago, and they present a puzzle of both engineering and intention. The spheres range dramatically in size, from small examples the size of a basketball to colossal ones over 2 meters in diameter, weighing as much as several tons. The sheer scale is impressive, but the true marvel is their precision. Many of these spheres are so perfectly spherical that modern measurements reveal only the slightest of imperfections, a level of geometric accuracy that seems to defy the tools available at the time. They were carved from a single, solid block of gabbro, a hard, dense igneous rock similar to granite. Without metal tools, the process of shaping such resistant material into a flawless sphere is almost inconceivable. Archaeologists theorize the artisans likely used a combination of controlled heating with fire and rapid cooling with water to fracture the stone, followed by relentless pecking and grinding with other, harder stones. This was a monumental undertaking of patience and skill, likely taking generations for the largest spheres. But the how is only half the mystery. The why remains completely elusive. When researchers began to document the sites, they noticed something crucial. The spheres were not randomly dropped. They were found in clear arrangements, often grouped in lines, triangles, or circles at what appear to be important communal spaces, like village plazas or near the bases of large earthen mounds. This deliberate placement screams of purpose. Were they astronomical markers, their alignments pointing to solstices or important stars? Could they have been symbols of power and status, with the size and number of spheres denoting the importance of a chieftain or a family line? Perhaps they marked sacred boundaries or represented celestial bodies in a cosmological map. The local indigenous cultures were displaced long ago, and with them, the oral traditions that could explain these silent sentinels. Their meaning is locked within the stone. This anomaly forces a profound shift in how we view pre-Columbian societies in the region. It compels us to move beyond seeing them only through the lens of subsistence or warfare, and to recognize their deep investment in abstract concepts like geometry, social order, and their relationship with the cosmos. The Diquís spheres are not mere curiosities. They are a testament to a forgotten people who dedicated immense resources not to a temple or a fortress, but to the creation of perfect, enigmatic forms, leaving behind a question in stone for a future world to ponder. While the spheres stand as silent monuments of form, another artifact from the past speaks in a language no one can understand. In the rare books library of Yale University rests a small, unassuming volume that has become the most famous, indecipherable document in the world. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a book that looks like a typical medieval herbal or scientific text, yet every single page is filled with profound and deliberate mystery. Created on vellum parchment in the early 15th century, its 240 pages are covered in a flowing, elegant script that uses an alphabet of around 30 unique characters. It is accompanied by vibrant, intricate illustrations that only deepen the puzzle. There are pages of unfamiliar plants with bulbous roots and strange leaves, none of which match any known botanical species. There are circular astrological charts adorned with zodiac symbols yet arranged in unfamiliar configurations. There are intricate networks of pipes and vessels that some interpret as biological diagrams, and perhaps most curiously, numerous pages showing nude female figures bathing in or interacting with a system of interconnected green pools and channels. For over a century, this book has been a siren call to the world's greatest cryptographers, linguists, and historians, all of whom have attempted to crack its code and failed. Military codebreakers from both world wars, including teams from the United States Navy and British intelligence, applied their most advanced techniques to the manuscript. They treated it as a complex cipher, looking for patterns, frequencies, and structures that would reveal a hidden message in a known language like Latin or Arabic. Every attempt hit a wall. The text possesses a consistent internal structure that suggests it is not random gibberish. Word lengths follow predictable patterns. Certain characters only appear in specific positions, and the text flows with a natural rhythm that mimics real language. Yet it correlates with nothing else in the historical record. This is what makes the Voynich Manuscript so uniquely frustrating and captivating. If it is a hoax, it is a work of staggering, pointless genius, created centuries before such a forgery could ever hope to gain fame or financial reward. The effort required to invent a completely consistent fictional language and pair it with hundreds of detailed, nonsensical illustrations would have been immense for a medieval prankster with no audience. The more compelling and unsettling theory is that it represents a genuine body of knowledge. Perhaps it is a treatise on a forgotten branch of herbal medicine, documenting plants that have since gone extinct or were known only in an isolated region. Maybe its circular diagrams hold an alternative understanding of astronomy or cosmology. The bathing figures could illustrate a long-lost spiritual or therapeutic practice. The manuscript forces a humbling admission. We may be holding a detailed encyclopedia of a complete worldview, a snapshot of a culture's entire intellectual framework, and we cannot read a single word. It is a library with locked doors, a conversation we can see but cannot hear. This anomaly does not challenge our understanding of engineering or geography, but something even more fundamental, our ability to comprehend the thoughts of those who came before us. The Voynich Manuscript is a stark reminder that history is not just written in languages we know. Some of its most intriguing chapters are penned in a hand we have yet to recognize. A library of lost knowledge might be locked in an unreadable book, but a far simpler object from another ancient culture hints at a different kind of forgotten power. In the 1930s, among the ruins of a 2,000-year-old Parthian village near Baghdad, workers uncovered several very peculiar clay pots. Each was about the size of a fist, sealed with an asphalt plug. Inside, a rolled copper sheet formed a cylinder, and suspended within it was an iron rod. To the untrained eye, they looked like nothing special, just more ancient debris. But when a German archaeologist named Wilhelm König studied them, a startling possibility emerged. When filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or fermented grape juice, this simple assembly of clay, copper, and iron could produce a small but measurable electric current. It was, in essence, a primitive battery. The implications of this are quietly revolutionary. If the interpretation is correct, these artifacts, now known as the Baghdad Batteries, represent a working understanding of electrochemical principles over 1,500 years before Alessandro Volta's celebrated invention of the voltaic pile in the year 1800. The current generated would have been weak, perhaps 1 volt or so, but it would have been consistent. So what possible use could such a tiny amount of ancient electricity have served? The most compelling theory involves a craft the Mesopotamians were famously skilled at: gilding. They mastered the art of applying thin layers of gold onto objects made of silver or other metals. The traditional method involves mercury and is highly toxic. Some researchers have proposed that electroplating using the current from these jars could have provided a cleaner, more controlled alternative. Experiments using replicas filled with an electrolyte like grape juice have successfully deposited a thin film of gold onto a silver object, proving the concept is physically possible. Of course, mainstream archaeology offers alternative explanations. The jars could have been used for storing sacred scrolls, with the iron and copper acting as protective rollers, and the asphalt simply a sealant. The absence of wires or any clear connectors is often cited as a counterargument. Yet, the very simplicity is what makes the electrochemical theory so tantalizing. It doesn't require a grand, lost technological civilization. It suggests something perhaps more profound. Curious tinkerers. Imagine an ancient artisan, perhaps by complete accident, noticing a strange tingle or a chemical reaction when certain metals were placed in a certain solution within a ceramic vessel. Through experimentation, they could have refined the arrangement to produce a consistent, if mysterious, effect. They may never have understood the science of electrons and ions, but they could have harnessed the phenomenon for a practical, beautiful purpose, or even a mystical one. The subtle glow from electroplated objects in a dim temple, or a mild shock administered during a ceremonial ritual, could have been perceived as magic or divine power. This anomaly challenges not the timeline of grand engineering, but the timeline of simple, empirical discovery. It proposes that the spark of one of humanity's most defining forces, electricity, may have been glimpsed not in a modern laboratory, but in the workshops of a culture we think of as ancient. The Baghdad Batteries, whether they were truly that or not, force us to ask a subtle but important question. How many other fundamental principles of the natural world were independently discovered, used locally, and then forgotten, their secrets buried with the cultures that nurtured them, only to be reinvented millennia later? It suggests that the path of science is not a straight, unbroken line of progress, but a flickering flame, sometimes burning bright in one corner of the world before being snuffed out, waiting to be lit again. The subtle current of a forgotten battery is one thing, but to confront the raw, undeniable power of ancient engineering, you must stand before the walls of Sacsayhuamán. High above the city of Cusco in Peru, this fortress complex presents a spectacle of stone that defies simple explanation. Its most famous feature is a series of 3 towering, zigzagging walls, built from blocks of limestone so enormous they seem to belong to the realm of giants. Some of these stones are estimated to weigh well over 100 tons, the equivalent of a fully loaded commercial jet. Yet the sheer mass is not the true mystery. It is the impossible precision with which they are joined. Each polygonal block is a unique, irregular shape, carved to interlock perfectly with its neighbors in a complex, three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. The fit is so exact, so seamless, that for centuries people have said you cannot slide a razor blade or even a piece of paper between the stones. No mortar was used. The stability comes entirely from the genius of the cut. The conventional historical narrative credits the Inca Empire with constructing Sacsayhuamán in the 15th century as both a ceremonial center and a formidable fortress. But this attribution comes with a cascade of unanswered questions. How did they achieve this? The Inca are known to have had no draft animals, no wheeled carts, and their primary metal tools were made of bronze, a material too soft to efficiently quarry and shape such hard stone. The standard explanation involves thousands of workers laboring with stone hammers, bronze chisels, and ropes, slowly pecking away at quarries miles away. They would then transport these megaliths, possibly using log rollers and earthen ramps, up and down the steep Andean terrain. While this demonstrates incredible communal effort and organization, it does not fully account for the microscopic precision of the final product. The joints are not simply flat surfaces pressed together. Many stones have subtle, rounded interior angles and slight convexities, features that would require an advanced understanding of stone dressing and a method of trial fitting that seems almost playful in its complexity. This has led to a persistent and compelling alternative theory. Perhaps the Inca did not invent this technique from scratch. The site itself and the style of masonry is so distinct from other Inca constructions. Could they have built upon a far older foundation, literally and figuratively? Local legends speak of a time before the Inca, of master builders with knowledge passed down from even earlier peoples. The walls themselves offer a clue to their purpose beyond defense. This jigsaw-like construction is phenomenally resistant to earthquakes. When the ground shakes, the interlocked stones shift and settle as a single, flexible unit rather than cracking apart. This is not luck, it is sophisticated seismic engineering encoded in rock, so we are left with a monumental question mark carved into the mountainside. Did a brilliant Inca engineer, through generations of trial and error, develop this earthquake-proof masonry style independently? Or did they find the cyclopean foundations of Sacsayhuamán already in place, a legacy from a culture now lost to time, and then complete the work using and refining that inherited knowledge? The walls do not answer, they simply stand, a silent testament to a mastery of material and environment that continues to humble modern builders. They challenge our assumptions about pre-Columbian technology, not by suggesting lost machines, but by demonstrating a tactile, intimate genius for stone that we have yet to fully replicate or understand. The seamless stone walls of Sacsayhuamán are a monument to human ingenuity we can still touch, but some discoveries are so strange they vanish into the realm of legend almost as soon as they are found. In the remote Bayan Karaula Mountains on the border between China and Tibet, an expedition in 1938 reportedly entered a hidden cave system. What they described finding inside has become one of archaeology's most controversial and persistent stories. The cave contained neat rows of graves, and within them were the remains of individuals of unusually small stature. Scattered throughout the chamber were hundreds of peculiar stone discs, each about a foot across with a hole in the center, resembling primitive records or gears. These are the so-called Dropa Stones. The legend deepens with the claim that each disc was inscribed with a continuous, microscopic spiral groove that, upon closer inspection, was not a groove at all, but a line of tiny, unknown hieroglyphic characters. The story, as it was later popularized, states that a scholar named Tsum Nui eventually managed to translate these inscriptions in the 1960s, and the message he uncovered was nothing short of earth-shattering. The text allegedly told the story of a group of beings called the Dropa, whose spacecraft crashed in the mountains thousands of years ago. Stranded and unable to repair their vessel, they supposedly tried to make peaceful contact with the local tribes, eventually intermingling with them. If taken at face value, these artifacts would represent the most radical evidence imaginable, rewriting not only human history but our place in the cosmos. Unsurprisingly, mainstream archaeology universally dismisses the entire account. No credible institution has ever exhibited a Dropa stone. The original expedition leader's name is disputed, and the translating scholar cannot be verified. Many experts believe the story is an elaborate hoax that grew over decades, possibly originating from misidentified Neolithic stone artifacts known as bai discs, which are ceremonial items with central holes but no inscriptions. Others suggest it began as a piece of science fiction that was mistakenly reported as fact. Yet, the legend endures with remarkable tenacity in books and documentaries. This persistence is the real anomaly worth examining. Why does this particular story, despite a complete lack of physical evidence, continue to captivate us? The Dropa Stones speak less about ancient astronauts and more about a profound human need. They represent the ultimate pattern-seeking story, a desire to find definitive, tangible proof that our past is more extraordinary than the conventional timeline allows. They tap into a deep-seated curiosity about our origins and the tantalizing possibility that the answers might lie not just in our own evolution, but in the stars. The tale forces a crucial discussion about the boundaries of archaeological evidence. What separates a groundbreaking discovery from an enticing myth? The standard is rigorous peer review, verifiable provenance, and the ability for other experts to examine the artifacts, none of which exists for the Dropa stones. This case is a powerful reminder of the discipline's necessary skepticism, a guardrail against the seductive pull of narratives that feel exciting but crumble under scrutiny. Yet it also highlights a tension. Sometimes the official story feels incomplete, and the human imagination rushes to fill the gaps with possibilities that, however unlikely, challenge us to keep questioning. Whether a hoax, a misunderstanding, or something else entirely, the Dropa stones linger in the cultural imagination as a ghost of a question. What if, against all odds, a discovery that profound was real? And if not these stones, then what other genuine mysteries are still waiting in the shadows of the world's remote places, holding truths we have not yet dared to consider? A hammer should not be found inside a rock, yet in 1936, while walking along a creek bed near London, Texas, a couple made precisely that discovery. A piece of rock had broken open, revealing what looked like an ordinary carpenter's hammer embedded within it. This is the London hammer, and it has become a legendary icon in the world of out-of-place artifacts. The object itself is unassuming, a hammerhead made of iron with a partially petrified wooden handle. The extraordinary part is the stone that encased it, a hard concretion of limestone that, according to some geological tests on the surrounding matrix, dates to the Cretaceous period, an era that ended 66 million years ago, a time when dinosaurs still roamed the earth. The immediate, sensational question is obvious. Does this prove humans, or at least human-like toolmakers, existed over 100 million years ago? The scientific community's response is a firm and detailed no, but the explanation reveals a fascinating interplay between natural processes and human perception. Geologists point to a well-understood phenomenon called concretion. Minerals in water can precipitate and harden around any object, forming a solid nodule of rock in a surprisingly short time, geologically speaking. In the right conditions, this process can encapsulate a modern object in what looks like ancient stone within centuries, not millennia. The hammer itself, while clearly old, shows metallurgical qualities consistent with 19th-century American ironwork. The wood of the handle is partially mineralized, a process that can also occur relatively quickly. The most likely scenario is that a miner or settler from the 1800s lost or discarded a hammer near the creek. Over the decades, mineral-rich waters slowly coated it, building a hard limestone shell that made it appear as if it had been buried for eons. The context of its discovery, however, is what fuels the enduring mystery. It was found completely encased, with no signs of a recent fissure or tool mark on the stone that would suggest it was planted. To the finders, it looked authentically ancient. This is where the London hammer becomes a perfect case study for a critical principle in archaeology. Context is everything. An artifact alone tells only half the story. Its true meaning comes from its surroundings, the layer of earth it was found in, the other objects nearby, and the geological history of the site. Without that precise, documented context, an object can float in time, unmoored from its true origin. The hammer challenges us not with proof of ancient advanced humans, but with a lesson in how easily we can misinterpret the past when we focus on a single, startling object and divorce it from the complex story of the landscape. It sits at the heart of a fundamental debate between mainstream science and alternative history. For some, it is a defiant symbol, a piece of evidence that our timelines are wrong and that history holds forgotten chapters of human or even pre-human industry. For geologists and archaeologists, it is a compelling example of how nature can create perfect illusions, reminding us that extraordinary claims require not just extraordinary evidence, but evidence that is contextual, repeatable, and rigorously scrutinized. The London hammer, therefore, is more than a curiosity. It is a philosophical artifact. It asks us where we place our trust, in the immediate, shocking appearance of a thing, or in the slow, meticulous work of understanding the processes that shape our world. It embodies the human desire to find proof that our story is longer and more mysterious than we think, while also cautioning us that the real mystery often lies in the subtle, easily overlooked workings of the natural world right beneath our feet. The desert floor holds a message only the sky can read, stretching across nearly 200 square miles of the arid Peruvian plains. The Nazca Lines are a collection of geoglyphs so vast they redefine the very concept of art. From ground level, they appear as nothing more than shallow, meandering trails, scrapes in the earth where the dark, sun-baked surface stones have been cleared away to expose the lighter-colored soil beneath. It is only when you ascend, when you view this canvas from the vantage point of a bird or a modern aircraft, that the true genius and mystery of the Nazca people is revealed. The random scratches resolve into staggering, precise forms: a hummingbird with wings outstretched over 300 feet, a spider depicted with anatomical accuracy, its leg span covering 150 feet of desert, a monkey with an intricately coiled tail. There are spirals, trapezoids, and straight lines that run for miles, cutting across the landscape with arrow-straight determination. These were not small-scale drawings. They were monumental earthworks created by the Nazca culture between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after, and their existence poses a profound logistical and philosophical puzzle. How did a people who lived nearly 2,000 years ago, with no known means of flight, design and execute artworks that could only be fully appreciated from an altitude of several hundred feet? The technical process of creation is, in itself, a testament to organization. Researchers believe teams of workers used simple stakes and ropes to map out the designs, scaling up smaller models plotted on the ground. By removing the top layer of iron oxide-coated pebbles, they created lines with crisp, enduring edges, preserved for millennia by one of the driest climates on Earth. The how is impressive, but the why remains the central, haunting question. Were these giant forms an astronomical calendar, their shapes aligned with solstices or specific star constellations? Some lines do point to celestial events on the horizon, suggesting a deep connection to the cycles of the heavens. another compelling theory sees them as ritual pathways. Perhaps during sacred ceremonies, communities walked along the outlines of these immense animals and shapes, physically tracing the forms of powerful spiritual beings to invoke their favor in a land where water was life itself. The most evocative idea is that they were messages not for humans, but for the deities they believed resided in the sky above. In a world where survival depended on the infrequent rains, creating images so large that only the gods could see them in their entirety was an act of profound devotion, a desperate and beautiful prayer etched into the very skin of the earth. This leads to the most tantalizing speculation of all. To create such precise, large-scale works without a constant aerial reference seems almost superhuman. Could the Nazca have developed a primitive form of hot air balloon, using woven fabrics and the heat from fires to achieve brief, tethered ascents for surveying? While no direct evidence of this exists, experiments using materials available to them have shown it is theoretically possible. Or did they possess a sophisticated, lost system of geometry and triangulation that allowed them to project complex images across vast distances with nothing but simple tools and mathematical knowledge? The lines challenge more than our view of ancient engineering. They challenge our understanding of ancient perception. They force us to consider a culture that thought and planned on a scale that transcended the human viewpoint, that invested immense communal effort into creating art for an audience they could never physically join. The Nazca Lines are not just drawings, they are a testament to a different way of seeing the world, a bold declaration that meaning and beauty could exist on a canvas so large it required faith rather than sight to complete the picture. They ask us to look up and wonder what we are building today that only the future, looking back, will truly be able to see. The desert's giant prayers to the sky are one thing, but what happens when you find a temple that rewrites the very first chapter of civilization itself? On a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey, a site known as Göbekli Tepe stands as perhaps the most profound archaeological anomaly ever uncovered. Its discovery did not just add a new page to history, it tore up the entire introduction. Here, massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, are arranged in great stone circles. They are intricately carved with a menagerie of powerful animals, foxes, snakes, boars, and birds of prey, alongside mysterious abstract symbols. The sheer artistry and labor involved are staggering, but the date is what shatters convention. This complex was constructed around 9,600 years before the Common Era. That makes it over 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, and it was built not by a settled farming society, but by hunter-gatherers. This fact alone challenges a foundational pillar of modern archaeology. The long-held story of human progress is simple and logical. First, humans learned to farm. Agriculture produced surplus food, which allowed people to settle in one place. This sedentary life led to larger populations, social hierarchies, specialized jobs, and finally, the spare time and resources to build monumental architecture and develop complex religion. Göbekli Tepe turns that sequence completely on its head. Here, the temple came first. The evidence suggests that bands of nomadic hunter-gatherers, who should have been focused solely on day-to-day survival, instead came together from across the region. They coordinated to quarry, transport, and erect these colossal pillars, carving them with a shared symbolic language before they had even built permanent homes for themselves. This forces a revolutionary question. Why? What powerful idea or shared belief was so compelling that it motivated these mobile groups to undertake a decades-long project of such back-breaking difficulty? The leading theory is as profound as the stones themselves. Perhaps it was the need to gather for ritual, for ceremony, that provided the catalyst for civilization. The site shows no evidence of permanent settlement, no houses or granaries. It appears to have been a purely ritual center, a sacred destination. To sustain the large workforce needed to build it, these groups may have started to cultivate wild grasses nearby to feed the laborers, sparking the first experiments in plant domestication. The carvings of dangerous animals might represent a spiritual world that needed to be appeased or harnessed, a collective focus that bound different clans together. Göbekli Tepe suggests that the human impulse to build meaning, to create a shared story about our place in the world, might be more fundamental than we thought. It proposes that the dream of a temple, the pull of collective ritual, could have been the spark that made us stop wandering and start building the world we know. This site is not just an ancient ruin, it is a philosophical challenge carved in limestone, asking us to reconsider what truly drives human innovation. Was it the practicality of farming, or was it the profound, unifying power of a shared belief that first taught us to move mountains? The sacred stones of Göbekli Tepe were carved with a shared vision, but some artifacts captivate us because they reflect our own image back with an unsettling perfection. Crystal skulls have become icons of the mysterious, objects of breathtaking beauty wrapped in layers of deception and desire. Carved from single blocks of clear or milky quartz, these life-sized representations of human skulls are most often linked in popular lore to the ancient Maya or Aztec civilizations. The most renowned of them all is the Mitchell Hedges skull, named for the adventurer who claimed his daughter discovered it in a Mayan temple in the 1920s. Its craftsmanship is undeniably exquisite, featuring a perfectly smooth cranium and a separate, hinged jaw that moves with a quiet click, a detail that suggests an almost supernatural level of skill. For decades, these objects fueled incredible speculation. Were they ancient tools for healing or divination, repositories of lost knowledge, or perhaps even relics from the legendary continent of Atlantis? Their flawless surfaces, seemingly carved from one of the hardest materials on Earth without a single visible tool mark, suggested a technology beyond our understanding. The truth, as uncovered by rigorous scientific investigation, is more mundane but no less fascinating. Microscopic analysis of the most famous skulls, including the Mitchell Hedges, has revealed telltale signs of modern lapidary tools. The precise, symmetrical grooves and polished facets show patterns consistent with rotary wheels and diamond-tipped drills invented in the 19th century. The quartz itself can be traced to sources in Brazil and Madagascar, not Mesoamerica. The evidence strongly indicates that the majority of these celebrated skulls were crafted in Europe between the 1860s and 1950s, during a wave of fascination with pre-Columbian cultures and spiritualism. They were likely sold to collectors as genuine antiquities, beautiful forgeries feeding a hungry market for the exotic. Yet, even with this debunking, the crystal skulls remain a powerful anomaly of a different kind. They challenge us not with ancient engineering, but with the archaeology of belief itself. Why did these particular forgeries capture the global imagination so completely? Their form speaks to something deep within us. The skull is a universal symbol representing mortality, wisdom, and the seat of consciousness. Rendering it in crystal, a material associated with clarity, energy, and the eternal, creates a potent paradox: the ephemeral human form made permanent in a stone that seems to hold light. They sit precisely at the intersection of genuine curiosity about ancient cultures and our own modern longing for magic and lost worlds. The mystery, then, shifts from how they were made to why we so desperately wanted them to be real. They force a crucial exercise in discernment, asking us to separate authentic awe for pre-Columbian artistry from the seductive stories we layer atop objects. If any genuinely ancient crystal skull were ever found, its creation would indeed be a marvel, a testament to patience and skill we can scarcely comprehend. But as they stand, these luminous objects serve as a different kind of lesson. They are mirrors, reflecting our enduring need to find the extraordinary in the past and a cautionary tale about the fine line between respectful wonder and the invention of a past that never was. Their silent gaze holds a warning written in stone. On the remote shores of Easter Island, the Moai stand as colossal sentinels, their backs to the endless Pacific, their hollow eyes fixed upon the land. Carved from compressed volcanic ash by the Rapa Nui people between 1250 and 1500 of the Common Era, these monolithic figures are a breathtaking feat of artistry and engineering. Nearly 900 of them exist, with the largest completed statue standing over 30 feet tall and weighing an estimated 82 tons. The act of carving them from the quarry at Ronoroku is impressive enough, but the true, enduring mystery lies in the journey. How did a society without the wheel, without draft animals, and without metal tools move these multi-ton giants for miles across rugged terrain to their final coastal platforms, known as Ahu? For decades, the dominant theory involved a slow, grinding process of dragging the statues on log sledges, a method that would have consumed vast quantities of the island's precious timber. This idea fed a powerful narrative of ecological collapse, a story of a people who cut down every last tree to move their stone gods, only to doom themselves to isolation and hardship. Recent experiments, however, have proposed a more elegant and physically plausible solution. Archaeologists like Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo conducted field tests with a concrete replica, demonstrating that a surprisingly small team could walk a Moai upright to its destination. By using 3 sturdy ropes, teams could rock the statue from side to side, coordinating pulls to make it pivot forward in a controlled, shuffling gait. This walking method would have been far more efficient, requiring fewer people and less wood, perhaps using only small wooden lever poles. It suggests the Rapa Nui were not just brute force laborers but ingenious physicists, understanding balance, rhythm, and center of gravity in a profoundly practical way. Yet, even this elegant method does not diminish the staggering scale of the societal operation. Each statue represented an immense investment of time, skill, and communal coordination. The carving, the transport, the raising onto the Ahu platforms, and the final placement of the distinctive red stone top-knots, or pukao, required a highly organized, hierarchical society with a powerful shared purpose. The Moai were not mere decorations. They are believed to represent deified ancestors, their presence on the coast meant to watch over and protect the living communities inland. This was a spiritual technology, a monumental act of faith. The eventual decline of this statue-building culture is a complex chapter, likely involving the arrival of European contact, introduced illnesses, and social upheaval, alongside the real ecological pressures of deforestation and soil depletion. The Moai, therefore, stand as a dual symbol. They are a soaring testament to what a united community can achieve when driven by a common vision, a proof of human ingenuity in the face of immense logistical challenges. Simultaneously, their silent, unfinished brethren still lying in the quarry serve as a poignant reminder that even the grandest cultural projects exist within the delicate balance of the environment that sustains them. They ask us a timeless question, not about how they moved, but about why we build and what we are willing to expend in the pursuit of meaning that will outlast us. The silent faces of the Moai watch over a known landscape, but some messages from the past are etched in a language of pure abstraction. Buried for decades beneath a layer of turf and soil in a Scottish field, the Cochno Stone lay hidden until its dramatic rediscovery in 2015. When archaeologists carefully peeled back the earth, they revealed a sandstone slab over 40 feet long, its entire surface a dense tapestry of carved symbols. This is not a simple marker or a single image. It is a chaotic, beautiful explosion of Neolithic art, a 5,000-year-old canvas covered in hundreds of deep cup marks, concentric rings, swirling spirals, and labyrinthine geometric patterns. Known as cup and ring marks, these symbols are found on stones across Britain and Ireland, but the Cochno Stone is a masterpiece of the form, its scale and complexity unmatched. To stand before it is to be confronted by a profound and elegant silence. Every groove was made with clear intention, the product of immense labor and care, yet the meaning behind this visual symphony has evaporated into the mists of time. Modern interpretations swirl like the stone's own spirals. Could these patterns represent maps of the stars, charting constellations important to the farming cycles of the people who carved them? Some researchers see territorial boundaries, with the intricate networks of lines and cups marking clan lands or sacred routes across the landscape. The most evocative theory suggests these were portals, physical points of connection to other realms. The act of carving the spirals might have been a meditative or ritual practice, the concentric circles serving as pathways for spiritual journeys, guiding the mind inward or symbolizing the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The sheer density of the carvings is the real clue. This was not a casual doodle or a single generation's work. The overlapping patterns suggest the stone was revisited, added to, and respected over centuries. It functioned as a living document, a communal focal point where knowledge, belief, and identity were literally set in stone. This creates a humbling realization. We are looking at a sophisticated symbolic language, a system of recording and conveying ideas that was undoubtedly rich with meaning for its creators, but one for which we have lost the key. The Cochno Stone highlights a vast and often overlooked gulf in our understanding of history. We can analyze the tools used, date the lichen growth, and map the symbols, but we cannot hear the stories told beside it, feel the emotions it stirred, or comprehend the precise spiritual truths it was meant to hold. This anomaly challenges the very way we reconstruct the past. We tend to project our own frameworks, seeing star maps or property lines, when the true significance may lie in a conceptual world entirely foreign to our own, a way of seeing the universe that intertwined the earthly and the celestial, the practical and the mystical, into one seamless whole. The stone does not give up its secrets. It simply asks us to sit with the mystery, to acknowledge that the inner lives of our prehistoric ancestors, their philosophies, their cosmologies, their most profound questions were as complex and nuanced as our own, expressed not in words we can translate, but in a silent, enduring poetry of stone. The abstract language of the Cochno Stone is carved in open air, but some of humanity's greatest works are hidden entirely from the sun. In 1992, in Zhejiang Province, China, a local farmer decided to pump water out of what he thought was a small, deep pond. As the water level dropped, he did not find a muddy bottom. Instead, he revealed the entrance to a vast hand-carved cavern. This was the first of the Longyou Caves, a discovery that would unveil one of the world's most staggering and inexplicable underground complexes. To date, 36 of these caverns have been identified, each one an artificial grotto of monumental scale, carved by human hands from solid sandstone and siltstone over 2,000 years ago. Stepping inside is an experience that defies expectation. The caves are not rough, natural caverns adapted for use. They are meticulously engineered spaces. The ceilings soar to heights of nearly 100 feet, supported by massive, evenly spaced pillars that hold up the immense weight of the mountain above. The walls, ceilings, and pillars are all covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks, a consistent, swirling design that runs across every surface like a giant's fingerprint. This decorative finishing touch reveals an astonishing fact. This was not just a functional excavation. It was an architectural project executed with an obsessive attention to aesthetic detail. The sheer volume of rock removed is almost incomprehensible. Conservative estimates suggest over 1 million cubic meters of stone were quarried and taken away from this single site. To put that in perspective, that is enough material to construct a pyramid 1/3 the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and here lies one of the first great puzzles. Where did all that stone go? There are no nearby mountains made of this distinctive sandstone, no ancient structures in the region that obviously used this immense quantity of material. It simply vanished from the historical and geological record. The purpose of the caves is equally mysterious. They show no signs of being used as tombs, with no burial artifacts or niches found. They were not inhabited, as there is no evidence of daily life or soot from cooking fires. The idea of them being a secret palace or military shelter is challenged by their lack of defensive features or living quarters. Some have suggested they were giant reservoirs or flood control chambers, but their intricate decoration seems excessive for purely utilitarian storage. The most haunting question is one of organization. How did a society from over 2,000 years ago, likely before the unification of China under the Qin dynasty, coordinate such a mammoth, multi-generational project? The precision of the parallel markings indicates a shared, standardized technique used by hundreds, perhaps thousands of workers across centuries. They worked in near-total darkness, likely by the flickering light of oil lamps, yet maintained consistent angles, wall slopes, and pillar placements throughout the sprawling network. This was not haphazard digging, this was underground city planning. The Longyou Caves stand as a silent monument to a forgotten chapter of collective will. They challenge the narrative that ancient large-scale projects were always dedicated to visible, above-ground glory like pyramids or temples. Here, the masterpiece is inverted, hidden beneath the earth, its beauty meant for an audience that history has forgotten. This immense, decorated void asks us what powerful belief or societal need could possibly justify such a hidden, Herculean effort, and what other vast, invisible wonders from our past might still be waiting, undiscovered, right beneath our feet. Some stones are carved with patterns we cannot read, while others bear images we recognize all too well, yet their context makes no sense at all. In a private museum in Ica, Peru, you can find a collection of over 15,000 andesite stones, each one covered in intricate, fine-line engravings. The scenes they depict are a surreal catalogue of the impossible. Humans engaged in what looks like open-heart surgery or using telescopes, maps of unfamiliar continents. And most famously, people fighting, riding, or living alongside creatures that bear a striking resemblance to dinosaurs like Triceratops and Stegosaurus. These are the Ica Stones, and they present a mystery not of ancient engineering but of modern belief. They first gained wide attention in the 1960s when a local farmer named Basilio Ushuaia claimed he had found them in a cave. He sold them to a physician, Dr. Javier Cabrera, who built a museum and devoted his life to promoting their authenticity. According to this narrative, the stones were created by an ancient, advanced civilization that possessed knowledge lost to time, a civilization that witnessed the age of dinosaurs. If true, they would not just rewrite history, they would shatter the foundations of paleontology and human evolution. The scientific community, however, reached a consensus with remarkable speed. Geologists who examined the stones noted a critical detail. The engraved lines showed no signs of natural weathering or patina inside the grooves. The edges of the carvings were sharp and fresh, unlike the weathered surface of the stone itself. This strongly suggested the images were made recently, decades rather than centuries ago. Furthermore, the farmer who provided the stones later admitted in interviews that he had carved them himself, using a dental drill and then aging the stones by baking them in cow dung. He said he created the designs inspired by comic books, textbooks, and his own imagination, crafting a story to sell more stones to eager collectors. This seems like an open and shut case of a modern hoax. Yet, the stones refuse to fade into obscurity. Why do they continue to captivate a segment of the public and fuel endless speculation online? The answer lies not in the stones but in us. They represent the ultimate expression of a desire for a different past, one filled with lost knowledge and dramatic secrets. They tap into a profound dissatisfaction with the conventional timeline, offering tangible, physical artifacts that seem to prove our textbooks wrong. The debate around them has become a case study in the clash between two ways of knowing. On one side, scientific rigor relies on verifiable evidence, peer review, and methods like patina analysis. On the other, a deep-seated intuition argues that mainstream science is closed-minded, that a single farmer's confession could be coerced or false, and that the establishment is too quick to dismiss anything that challenges its paradigm. This makes the Ica Stones a powerful, if fabricated, anomaly. They challenge the very process of authentication in archaeology. How do we prove something is a fake, and when does the burden of proof shift? They force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes we want a mystery to be real so badly that we overlook the simpler, more mundane explanation. The stones are, in a real sense, a mirror. They reflect our hunger for wonder, our suspicion of official narratives, and the eternal human hope that the past holds grander, more exciting truths than the ones we've settled for. Their legacy is not a rewritten history of dinosaurs and humans, but a lasting lesson in how easily a compelling story, etched in stone, can become its own kind of undeniable reality for those who choose to believe. The sea holds its own megaliths waiting in the silent dark. Off the southern coast of Japan, near the island of Yonaguni, a diver exploring in 1986 encountered something that should not have been there. 25 meters below the surface, he found not a coral reef or a rocky outcrop, but a colossal, geometric structure. This is the Yonaguni Monument, a sprawling underwater formation that looks for all the world like a sunken city. Its features are startlingly architectural, a series of massive stone blocks with flat, parallel faces meeting at sharp, 90-degree angles. There are wide, level terraces that resemble giant steps or plazas. There are straight, narrow channels that cut through the rock like roads, and two towering pillars that stand side by side like a monumental gateway. The entire structure is over 160 feet long and 80 feet tall, a monolith that dominates the seafloor. The immediate, breathtaking question is simple. Is this the work of human hands or a masterpiece of natural geology? This single site has become a focal point for one of archaeology's most passionate debates. On one side, researchers like Professor Masaki Kimura, a marine geologist, point to specific details that seem to defy natural explanation. They note a triangular depression that looks carved, a row of smaller holes that could have held wooden posts, and the sheer symmetry of the terraces. The presence of what appears to be a carved human face and animal figures on one wall adds to the argument for human artistry. If these features are intentional, the implications are staggering. The monument sits at a depth that would have been above sea level during the last ice age, when global water levels were over 100 meters lower. That dates a potential construction to at least 10,000 years ago, a time when mainstream history tells us humans in this region were hunter-gatherers, not builders of monumental stone complexes. This timeline brushes against local legends of a sunken land, a Pacific counterpart to Atlantis sometimes called Mu. Could this be a physical fragment of that myth? Geologists offer a compelling counter-narrative. They explain that the bedrock here is sandstone, which naturally fractures along straight planes due to tectonic stresses. The powerful currents in this channel are constant sculptors, sandblasting the stone and accentuating these joints, creating flat surfaces and sharp edges over millennia. The step-like terraces could simply be the result of harder layers of rock eroding more slowly than softer ones. What looks like a carved face could be a classic example of pareidolia, our brain's tendency to see familiar patterns in random shapes. The debate, therefore, is not about whether the formation exists but about how to read it. It is a lesson in perception. When we look at a strangely shaped cloud, we might see a dragon. When we look at Yonaguni, some see a pyramid, while others see a uniquely beautiful geological process. This is the heart of the anomaly. It forces us to examine the line between a wondrous natural formation and the even more wondrous possibility of a lost human chapter. Diving at Yonaguni is an exercise in suspended judgment. You swim through canyons that feel like streets, over platforms that invite ceremony, all while knowing the ocean itself is a patient and powerful artist. The monument does not give easy answers. Instead, it offers a profound question about memory. If a culture did build this and the seas rose to claim it, what else of their world vanished without a trace? It stands as a silent, enigmatic challenge, reminding us that the most compelling mysteries are often those just beyond the reach of the light. A single coin can carry the weight of an entire ocean crossing. In 1957, during a routine archaeological dig at a Native American coastal site in Maine, a team from the State Museum sifted through layers of shell and soil. Among the thousands of typical artifacts, one small, dark disc stood out. When cleaned, it revealed itself to be a silver coin, a Norse penny minted between 1065 and 1080 of the Common Era. This is the Maine Penny, and its isolated discovery is a quiet, profound shock to the system of American history. It remains the only pre-Columbian Norse artifact generally accepted as genuine from within the borders of the United States. Its existence in that context is a geographical whisper that echoes far louder than its size suggests. The coin was found at a site known as the Goddard Site, a place used by the Penobscot Nation's ancestors for centuries as a seasonal trading hub, long before and long after European contact. This location is the key to the mystery. The only confirmed Norse settlement in the Americas is at El Ants Ox Meadows on the northern tip of Newfoundland, over 1,000 miles to the north as the crow flies. So how did a coin from a Norse king's mint in Norway end up in a Native American shell midden in Maine? Two compelling theories emerge, each rewriting the narrative of early transatlantic contact in a different way. The first is the most direct and thrilling. Could Norse explorers, perhaps blown off course or deliberately seeking new lands, have sailed their iconic longships much further down the North American coastline than we have evidence for? Sagas speak of lands like Vinland, which could describe regions as far south as the Gulf of St. Lawrence or beyond. A voyage past the rocky shores of Newfoundland and Nova Scotia to the richer, forested coasts of what is now New England is not impossible, given their remarkable seafaring skills. They may have made a brief landing, perhaps trading with local communities, and this single coin, lost or given, became the sole physical trace of that encounter. The second theory is equally plausible and speaks to the vast, interconnected trade networks that existed among indigenous peoples long before Europeans arrived. The coin could have traveled not in a Viking longship but in a Native American canoe, through a long chain of hand-to-hand trade, moving from community to community over generations. It journeyed south from a point of initial contact in Labrador or Newfoundland. A Norse trader might have given it to a hunter in exchange for furs, and from there it became a curiosity, a piece of exotic material that circulated through established indigenous trade routes until it eventually rested in Maine. This theory highlights a sophisticated continental economy that could move objects across thousands of miles. The Maine Penny challenges the simplistic story of Columbus discovering a virgin continent. It does not suggest large-scale Norse colonization, but something perhaps more interesting: sporadic, fleeting moments of contact. These were not the beginnings of conquest, but brief intersections between two worlds, where goods, and possibly germs and ideas, were exchanged without either society fully realizing the long-term implications. The coin is an anomaly precisely because it is alone. If the Norse had a sustained presence, we would expect to find more than one penny. Its solitude makes it a powerful symbol of chance and mystery. It represents a thread of connection that was so thin, so ephemeral, that it almost vanished from history entirely, surviving only as this one tiny metallic clue. It asks us to reconsider the map of the 11th century world, not as isolated continents, but as a planet where daring sailors from the east and established nations in the west could, on rare occasions, reach across the void and touch. Deep within the crypts of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, a stone carving defies simple explanation. Etched into a wall during the Ptolemaic period over 2,000 years ago, this relief shows a strange and compelling scene. A large, elongated object shaped like a bulbous vase or a modern light bulb is held aloft by a pillar. Inside this vessel rests a snake, its body stretched out in a straight line, pointed at one end and flaring at the other, resembling a glowing filament. The snake is connected by a cable to a box upon which a figure stands, and from the box, a two-armed pillar rises, each arm cradling what looks like a smaller version of the same bulb and snake. To a modern eye, the resemblance to an electrical apparatus is startling and immediate. It looks like a diagram for a lamp, complete with a power source, cables, and the bulb itself. This is the so-called Dendera Light, and it stands at the crossroads of two completely different ways of seeing the ancient world. Mainstream Egyptology has a clear and elegant interpretation. Scholars identify the bulbous object not as a technological device, but as a lotus flower, a potent symbol of creation and rebirth in Egyptian mythology. The snake inside is interpreted as a divine serpent emerging from the lotus, representing the moment of creation, the spark of life coming forth from the primordial waters. The pillar is the jed, a symbol of stability, and the box is likely a shrine. The entire tableau is a sacred scene, a visual hymn to the gods, depicting a spiritual concept, not an engineering schematic. This explanation is rooted in a deep understanding of Egyptian religious iconography, where animals, plants, and objects consistently serve as metaphors for cosmic principles. Yet, the alternative theory persists with a powerful logic of its own. The visual parallel is simply too precise for some to dismiss. Could this be evidence of a forgotten practical application? Proponents of this view ask a provocative question. What if the symbols were dual purpose, encoding both a spiritual truth and a physical one? They point to the Baghdad Battery as a potential real-world counterpart, a simple electrochemical cell that could, in theory, produce a small current. Could the priests of Hathor have used such devices to create a glowing effect within hollowed-out stone vessels, using electrified filaments or gases to produce a mysterious, divine light in the dark temple crypts? This would not require a modern understanding of electrons, but rather an empirical mastery of a phenomenon harnessed for ritual drama. The true anomaly here is not necessarily the carving itself, but the interpretive rift it reveals. It challenges us to examine the lens through which we view antiquity. Are we, with our 21st century minds, inevitably projecting our own technological framework onto a purely symbolic art form, seeing light bulbs where the ancients saw only sacred flowers? This is a real risk, a form of pareidolia on a cultural scale. Or does our rigid categorization of the past into separate boxes, labeled religion and science, prevent us from seeing a more integrated worldview? In ancient Egypt, the practical and the spiritual were not separate realms. Knowledge was holistic. A priest could be an astronomer, a physician, and a theologian simultaneously. It is conceivable that an observed natural phenomenon, like static electricity from polishing certain stones or the glow of certain gases, could have been incorporated into both temple ritual and its accompanying art, becoming a bridge between the seen and the unseen. The Dendera Light forces a humbling exercise. It asks us to hold two possibilities in mind at once. we must respect the scholarly interpretation grounded in context and comparative mythology, while also acknowledging that our ancestors were brilliant observers and experimenters, capable of harnessing natural effects they may not have fully understood in ways that now look eerily familiar. The carving does not give us a clear answer. Instead, it illuminates the vast gap between our modern categories and the unified, symbolic mind of the past. It is a reminder that sometimes the most profound mystery is not what an ancient image represents, but how we choose to see it. Nature's artistry can be so precise it looks intentional. Among the oldest curiosities on our planet are the objects known as the Klerksdorp Spheres, discovered deep within 3 billion-year-old mineral deposits in South Africa. These small, rounded objects, often no larger than a walnut, have sparked one of the most enduring debates about the line between the natural and the manufactured. To the eye, they are uncanny. Some are perfect spheres, while others take the shape of flattened discs. Many are encircled by 1, 2, or 3 parallel grooves running around their equator, grooves so straight and even they look as if they were machined by a lathe. Found embedded in a very hard rock called pyrophyllite, which formed under immense heat and pressure in the Earth's distant past, their context alone makes them extraordinary. For those who propose alternative histories, these spheres are seen as impossible artifacts, evidence of a technological intelligence that existed on Earth at a time when only simple microbial life is believed to have existed. The idea is staggering, suggesting a forgotten chapter of our planet's story written by unknown hands billions of years ago. Geologists, however, offer a different yet equally fascinating explanation. They identify the spheres as natural concretions. Over immense spans of time, minerals like pyrite, also known as fool's gold or hematite, can precipitate out of solution and slowly crystallize around a tiny nucleus, such as a grain of sand. Under the extreme, uniform pressure of the surrounding rock, this growth can sometimes form remarkably spherical shapes. The enigmatic grooves are likely the result of a different crystalline layer forming and then wearing away, or the impression of surrounding rock strata that have since eroded. This natural process can create features of startling regularity, a testament to the consistent physical laws that govern our world. The true mystery of the Klerksdorp Spheres, therefore, is not about ancient factories. It is a profound lesson in human perception. We are pattern-seeking creatures by nature. Our brains are wired to find faces in clouds, animals in constellations, and, crucially, design in random shapes. This cognitive tendency is called pareidolia. It is the same instinct that makes us see a face on the surface of Mars or a chariot in a collection of stars. When we encounter an object as oddly regular as these spheres, our mind leaps to the most familiar explanation: craftsmanship. This case challenges us to hold two awe-inspiring truths in balance. The first is the incredible sculpting power of natural geology, capable of creating forms of near-perfect symmetry over eons through nothing but chemistry and pressure. The second is the powerful, sometimes misleading, drive of our own curiosity, which pushes us to look for makers and meaning in every corner of the universe. The spheres sit at this crossroads. They force a crucial question for any explorer of the anomalous. Are we looking at a message, or are we hearing an echo of our own desire for one? They remind us that the universe is full of wonders that require no intelligent designer to be beautiful, complex, or strangely geometric. Yet, they also underscore why we must keep looking, keep questioning, and remain humble enough to accept that sometimes the most extraordinary answer is the simplest one nature itself provides in its own patient, billion-year-long workshop. The mountains of Laos hold a silent stone forest, scattered across dozens of remote highland sites. Thousands of massive jars stand in mysterious congregations. Carved from solid sandstone and granite, these vessels are monumental, with the largest standing over 3 meters tall and weighing several tons, the equivalent of a small elephant. They date to Southeast Asia's Iron Age, a period spanning from about 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after. Yet their creators left no written records, no grand temples, and no clear settlements nearby. The Plain of Jaws is exactly what its name suggests, a vast, open-air gallery of enigmatic stoneware, and its purpose whispers to us from across 2 millennia, just beyond the edge of understanding. The immediate, practical question is how. How did these people quarry such enormous blocks of stone, shape them into elegant, cylindrical forms, often with an interior carved out as meticulously as the exterior, and then transport them for miles across rugged, forested terrain? The logistics imply a highly organized society with specialized stoneworkers, a command of leverage and transport, and a shared motivation powerful enough to justify generations of labor. But for what? The leading theory, supported by archaeological excavation, is that the jars were associated with ceremonial practices for the departed. Researchers have found human remains, burial goods, and ceramic jars inside and around the stone vessels at some sites. This suggests a complex ritual, where the jars may have been used to temporarily hold individuals before a secondary burial, or perhaps to decompose the body, with the bones later being collected for internment elsewhere. In this light, the jars were not mere containers, but sacred instruments in a profound cultural dialogue between the living and those who had passed on. Another compelling idea points to storage, but on a communal, almost mythical scale. Could these have been giant rain cisterns, carved to collect precious monsoon water for trade caravans? Or perhaps they held fermented rice wine or food for massive, region-wide festivals that cemented social bonds. Each theory paints a different picture of the society that built them, one focused on veneration of ancestors, or another on large-scale celebration and survival. The true haunting quality of the Plain of Jars, however, comes from a more recent layer of history. During the mid-20th century conflict in the region, the area was heavily bombed. The landscape itself bears the scars, with craters pocking the earth and many jars cracked or displaced by explosions. This adds a profound layer of poignancy. The sites represent an ancient cultural practice whose full meaning was already faded by time, and then further obscured by modern tragedy. It creates a double silence where the original voices of the jar makers are muffled first by centuries, and then by the reverberations of a more recent, painful past. This anomaly challenges archaeology in a deeply fundamental way. We have the artifacts, we have the dates, we can theorize about their use, but without the stories, the songs, the specific beliefs that gave these stones their sacred charge, can we ever truly reconstruct the social ritual? The jars stand as majestic, empty vessels in every sense. They hold the shape of a forgotten intention, a cultural vessel whose contents have evaporated. They ask us how much of history is truly in the object itself, and how much resides in the intangible human practices that surrounded it, now lost forever to the quiet of the mountains. The deep seafloor is a museum of the unseen, its exhibits hidden by perpetual night. In 2011, a team of Swedish treasure hunters scanning the Baltic Sea bed with side sonar made a discovery that would ignite a modern mystery. Their screen displayed a shape that seemed to defy the randomness of the ocean floor, a circular object roughly 60 meters in diameter. But it was the details that sent imagination soaring, straight lines, right angles, and what appeared to be a long, descending staircase leading into the dark. This was the Baltic Sea Anomaly, a perfect geometric interruption in a landscape of silt and stone, and its very existence became a riddle for the 21st century. The initial sonar image was so clean, so architectural, that theories erupted instantly. Was this a sunken UFO, a crashed spacecraft resting silently for millennia? Could it be a lost megalithic structure, a Baltic cousin to Stonehenge, submerged when ancient sea levels rose? Others proposed a more recent origin, perhaps a secret World War II anti-submarine device or a sunken naval structure, its records lost to time. The object's allure was its clarity on a screen, a digital ghost demanding explanation. Subsequent expeditions sought to bring it into focus. Divers and remote vehicles descended, but the Baltic's dark, murky waters and thick layers of sediment refused to give up a clear answer. The new images were frustratingly ambiguous, showing a rough, rock-like surface covered in strange, black soot-like formations. Samples suggested the material was mostly basalt, a common volcanic rock. For geologists, this pointed to a compelling natural explanation, a glacial erratic. During the last ice age, massive glaciers could have carried and then deposited a large, dense block of stone. As the glacier melted and retreated, it might have dragged the stone across the seabed, carving those perplexing linear grooves and giving the formation its startlingly geometric appearance. The staircase could simply be a trick of sonar shadow and perspective on a naturally fractured rock face. This scientific interpretation is elegant, relying on the immense sculpting power of ice ages. Yet, the human mind rebels against such simplicity when confronted with such perfect shapes. The anomaly lies in the space between what technology shows us and what nature can produce. It is a modern myth born from pixels and sonar pings, a reminder that our newest tools for discovery can create new categories of mystery. This object challenges not our understanding of ancient history, but our very process of interpretation in the digital age. We can map the entire ocean floor from satellites, yet when we find a strange shape, we are often left staring into the murk, just like those early divers. The Baltic Sea Anomaly underscores that the final frontier is not always in space. It is in the profound darkness here on our own planet, where the lines between a natural wonder and a lost artifact blur into a single, tantalizing question mark on a screen. It proves that the urge to solve mysteries is timeless, even when the clues are beamed back to us in the form of sound waves from the silent deep. 3 small clay tablets found in a Romanian village hold a claim that could rewrite the first chapter of human communication. Known as the Tărtăria Tablets, these artifacts were uncovered in 1961 from a burial site, resting alongside the remains of an individual. They are tiny, each one small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, and they are inscribed with a series of strange, angular symbols. Their age is what sends a shockwave through history. Radiocarbon dating places their creation around 5,300 years before the Common Era. That is a full 2,000 years older than the earliest known Sumerian cuneiform from Mesopotamia, long hailed as the birthplace of writing. If the symbols on these tablets constitute a true writing system, then the story of literacy does not begin in the grand city-states of the Middle East, but in the Neolithic villages of Southeast Europe. The symbols themselves are hauntingly familiar yet alien. Some look like simplified stick figures or animals, while others are stark geometric shapes, crosses, circles, and lines. A few bear an uncanny resemblance to characters from later scripts, like the linear of ancient Crete or even early Sumerian pictographs. This visual echo is what fuels the compelling argument for writing. Could these be a system of record-keeping, a way for a prehistoric culture to encode information about trade, rituals, or lineage? The implications are staggering. It would mean a society of farmers and herders, without large urban centers or known centralized authority, had developed one of humanity's most transformative technologies, the ability to store complex thought outside the human mind. Mainstream archaeology, however, urges profound caution. The prevailing view is that the tablets likely represent proto-writing, a system of symbolic marks with a more limited, perhaps ritualistic purpose. They might denote ownership, serve as amulets for protection, or record a specific ceremonial event without constituting a full, flexible language capable of conveying abstract narratives or administrative lists. The fact that they were found in a burial context supports this idea. They may have been personal tokens of identity or belief meant to accompany an individual, not public documents. This scholarly debate centers on a deceptively simple question: what exactly is writing? Is it any set of intentional marks, or must it be a reproducible system that can encode spoken language with grammar and syntax? The Tărtăria Tablets sit right on this fuzzy boundary. They challenge the linear, diffusionist model that all major innovations like writing spread out from a single cradle of civilization. Instead, they suggest a world where multiple cultures, in isolation, might have been groping toward the same revolutionary idea at different times and places. Perhaps writing was an invention waiting to happen, a cognitive threshold that human societies could cross independently when their social complexity reached a certain point. The true power of this anomaly is not in proving a definitive answer, but in forcing a re-examination of our assumptions. It asks us to look at the silent artifacts of the Neolithic with fresh eyes, to consider that the urge to make a permanent mark, to send a message across time, might be far older and more deeply human than we ever documented. The tablets are a whisper from a forgotten valley, a potential signal that the history of human thought is longer, more diverse, and far more mysterious than the clear timeline in our textbooks would have us believe. A monument for the future was born from the anonymity of the present. In 1980, in a quiet field in Elbert County, Georgia, a set of massive granite slabs appeared as if they had always been there. Nearly 20 feet tall and weighing over 100 tons, the Georgia Guidestones were engraved with a message in 8 modern languages, a set of 10 principles for a future society. Their origin story was as enigmatic as any ancient site. A man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, claiming to represent a small group of Americans, commissioned the monument through a local granite company, paying for it with funds from a bank and leaving no trace of his true identity. He wanted to create a guide for humanity after a period of crisis, a new set of commandments carved not for gods, but for the survivors of a potential dark age. The stones were a modern anomaly, a deliberate act of myth-making in an age of satellites and computers, and their message was both pragmatic and profoundly controversial. The 10 guidelines called for maintaining humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, guiding reproduction wisely, unifying humanity with a new living language, ruling passion and faith with tempered reason, and protecting people and nations with fair laws and just courts. They spoke of leaving room for nature and avoiding petty disputes, prizing truth, beauty, and love. To some, this was a visionary blueprint for a sustainable, peaceful future. To others, the first guideline about population control seemed a chilling echo of darker ideologies, making the stones a target for conspiracy theories and outright hostility. For over 4 decades, they stood as America's Stonehenge, a pilgrimage site for curious travelers and a canvas for both reverence and vandalism. Then, in 2022, part of the structure was severely damaged in an explosion, and the remainder was demolished for safety reasons shortly after. Their physical erasure only amplified their mystery. Why were they built, and by whom? Was R.C. Christian a lone eccentric, a representative of a philosophical society, or something else entirely? Their destruction did not silence their questions. It merely transformed the Guidestones from a physical puzzle into a cultural ghost. This anomaly is unique because it is not a relic of a distant past we are trying to interpret, but a contemporary artifact whose creators deliberately chose the language of antiquity, granite and cryptic inscription, to speak to a future they would never see. It bridges the ancient impulse seen at Göbekli Tepe or with the Nazca Lines to create enduring monuments for an unknown audience, with the modern world's anxieties about survival, ecology, and global governance. The Georgia Guidestones challenge our understanding of how myths are born, not just in the deep past, but here and now. They force us to ask what messages we are carving into our own world today, what principles we would enshrine in stone for a future civilization to unearth, and whether any monument, no matter how solid, can survive the turbulent currents of the present long enough to become a guide for the future. Sometimes a hill is more than a hill. In the heart of Bosnia, near the town of Visoko, a cluster of four-sided mounds rise from the landscape with a symmetry that catches the eye and ignites the imagination. These are the so-called Bosnian Pyramids, and their story is a modern epic of discovery, controversy, and the deep human need to find lost worlds in our own backyard. Since 2005, when businessman and amateur archaeologist Semir Osmanagic proposed the radical idea, these landforms have been at the center of a fierce international debate. Osmanagic and his team claim the hills are not hills at all, but the largest and oldest pyramids on Earth, constructed by an unknown civilization over 10,000 years ago. They point to their geometrically aligned sides, which they say face the cardinal directions, and to alleged networks of underground tunnels and stone blocks found on the slopes. For supporters, this is the missing link, proof of a sophisticated global culture that predates all known ancient civilizations, a narrative that draws thousands of visitors and volunteers to the site each year. The response from the global scientific community has been a near-unanimous rebuttal. Geologists from across Europe have examined the site and concluded the formations are entirely natural. They are classic examples of flatirons, a common geological structure where layers of sedimentary rock are tilted and then eroded over millennia by wind and water, creating sharp, triangular faces that can look eerily artificial. The stone blocks cited as evidence of construction are identified as natural conglomerate rock, fractured by tectonic forces. The tunnels, while intriguing, are seen as natural cave systems or possibly medieval mining passages. Excavations have indeed uncovered artifacts, but these date to the medieval and Neolithic periods, evidence of human settlement on and around the hills, not of their construction. No tool marks, no burial chambers, no ceramics or remains definitively linked to a massive building project have been found. To mainstream archaeologists, the hills are a beautiful geological accident upon which later peoples simply lived. This clash is far more than an academic disagreement. It represents a fundamental tension in how we understand the past. On one side is the revolutionary claim, a desire to rewrite history with a single, spectacular discovery. It speaks to a public fascination with grand narratives and hidden truths, offering a tangible connection to a past more epic than the one in textbooks. On the other side is the slow, meticulous process of scientific consensus, built on peer review, geological principles, and the cautious interpretation of evidence. The Bosnian Pyramids controversy lays bare the challenge of distinguishing a cultural monument from a natural wonder, especially when the lines are blurred by human activity across millennia. The phenomenon also reveals how archaeology can become entangled with powerful forces beyond the dig site. For the town of Visoko and for Bosnia itself, the pyramid claim has become a source of national pride and a significant economic engine, drawing tourism and international attention to a region recovering from conflict. This intertwining of identity, economy, and history makes objective analysis even more difficult, as the question of what the hills are becomes also a question of what they mean for a community's future. The ongoing work there, whether one views it as fringe archaeology or valuable exploration, challenges the very methods of heritage interpretation. It asks who gets to define what is historically significant, and how we balance open-minded investigation with rigorous scientific standards. In the end, the hills of Visoko stand as a powerful modern anomaly, not necessarily of the ancient world, but of our contemporary relationship with it, a mirror reflecting our timeless hope that the ordinary landscape around us might still hold the shapes of an extraordinary, forgotten dawn. The final mystery requires no ancient hands, only the patient wind and a perfect winter night. On the vast, flat expanse of the racetrack playa in Death Valley, stones seem to take solitary journeys. Scattered across this dried lakebed are rocks of all sizes, from small pebbles to boulders weighing hundreds of pounds, and trailing behind each one are long, graceful tracks etched into the cracked mud. These trails curve, cross, and loop with a deliberate elegance, as if the stones had decided to go for a leisurely stroll under the stars. For over a century, this was one of nature's most charming and perplexing riddles. With no witnesses, the phenomenon fueled speculation that bordered on the magical. Could powerful, localized magnetic fields be pulling them? Were pranksters moving them under cover of darkness? Or was the playa itself somehow alive, slowly shifting its stones in some incomprehensible geological breath? The sailing stones became an icon of the genuinely unexplained, a quiet rebellion against a world where everything seemed mapped and measured. The solution, when it finally came, was as beautiful in its simplicity as the tracks themselves. It required a perfect, rare alignment of conditions that researchers patiently waited years to observe. During cold winter nights, a shallow pool of rainwater can freeze on the playa, forming a thin, window-pane sheet of ice around the base of a rock. As the morning sun warms the ice, it begins to fracture into large, floating panels. Then, a light breeze, no stronger than a gentle push, catches these ice sheets. They act like miniature sails or floating rafts, nudging the rocks across the slick, wet mud beneath. The movement is incredibly slow, just a few inches per minute, but over hours it carves those iconic, meandering trails. When the water evaporates and the mud dries, all that remains is the stone and its mysterious path, the ice long gone without a trace. This natural anomaly, now explained, serves as a profound and fitting conclusion to our journey. It reminds us that not every ancient wonder is a product of lost civilizations or forgotten technology. Some are masterpieces of pure physics, artworks created by the subtle interplay of ice, water, stone, and wind. The decades of mystery surrounding the sailing stones were not a failure of science, but a testament to its spirit. The solution did not diminish the wonder, it deepened it, replacing supernatural speculation with a more resonant truth about the elegant clockwork of our natural world. These 25 anomalies, from the Antikythera Mechanism to the wandering stones of Death Valley, collectively challenge us to hold two ideas in balance. We must remain open to the possibility that the human story is longer, more inventive, and more mysterious than our records show, while also respecting the patient, powerful methods of inquiry that help us separate lost history from natural marvel. They teach us that the past is not a static monolith, but a living conversation between what we find, what we imagine, and what we can prove. The greatest discovery is not always a new artifact, but a new way of seeing. As you look at the world around you, remember that history is still being written, not just in books, but in the silent movement of stones, the alignment of forgotten stones, and the quiet persistence of questions waiting for their moment in the light. Stepping back from these individual puzzles, a pattern begins to emerge from the dust. These anomalies are not randomly scattered across time. They often appear at moments of profound transition or at the peak of a culture's creative energy. Consider the timeline. At Göbekli Tepe, we see a monumental project undertaken by hunter-gatherers just as humanity stood at the threshold of settled life. The Nazca Lines flourished as their society mastered a harsh desert environment. The Inca perfected their seismic stonework at the zenith of their imperial power. It is as if these cultures, at their most vital and ambitious, pushed the boundaries of what was possible, leaving behind signatures of their genius that we struggle to decipher. This clustering challenges one of our most comfortable narratives, the idea of linear, cumulative progress. The story we often tell ourselves is simple. Each generation builds upon the knowledge of the last in a steady march from simple to complex. But the Antikythera Mechanism, a device of staggering complexity that vanishes for over a millennium, tells a different story. The Baghdad Batteries hint at a principle known, used, and then forgotten. These artifacts suggest a more cyclical rhythm to human knowledge, where brilliant insights can flicker brightly in one era, only to be extinguished by time, conflict, or simple forgetting, waiting to be kindled again independently centuries later. Progress, it seems, is not a straight line on a chart, but a spiral where we sometimes circle back to rediscover what was once known. Look deeper, and you see shared fascinations echoing across continents and millennia. The drive to move and shape megaliths is a constant, from Sacsayhuamán to Easter Island to the plains of Laos. A preoccupation with the heavens unites the builders of Stonehenge, the creators of the Antikythera Mechanism, and the Nazca who drew constellations upon the earth. The urge to encode meaning in enigmatic symbols pulses from the cup and ring marks of Neolithic Scotland to the undeciphered script of the Voynich Manuscript. These are not proofs of a single lost civilization, but something perhaps more profound, evidence of universal human preoccupations. Across isolated cultures, we see a common desire to reach for the monumental, to map the cosmos, and to speak in a symbolic language that transcends the everyday. The very persistence of these mysteries is itself a crucial piece of evidence. It points not to a failure of science, but to the inherent gaps in the material record and the limitations of our own perspective. Archaeology works with what survives, a tiny, fragmented fraction of what once was. We interpret the past through the lens of our own technological and cultural assumptions, which can blind us to solutions that lie outside our modern logic. The true function of the Diquís spheres or the Longyou Caves may be forever lost because the living context, the oral traditions, the daily rituals that gave them meaning have evaporated. These anomalies are pressure points, testing the resilience of our historical narratives and revealing where our understanding is built on inference rather than certainty. Therefore, these 25 puzzles are far more than mere curiosities or fodder for speculation. They are vital reminders, guardians at the border of the known. They do not necessarily demand that we believe in ancient astronauts or sunken continents, though they invite the questions. Instead, they ask us to hold our conclusions lightly. They champion a stance of informed humility and relentless curiosity. The past is not a solved puzzle, but an ongoing conversation, and each of these anomalies is a voice from the shadows, urging us to keep looking, to keep questioning, and to remember that the human story is far richer, more inventive, and more mysterious than any single narrative can contain. This collection of enigmas reveals a history far more complex and intriguing than any textbook could contain. From ancient astronomical computers to silent underwater monuments, each discovery pushes firmly against the boundaries of our established understanding. They remind us again and again that the past is not a settled fact but a living, breathing conversation, one where new evidence can arrive with the very next turn of a spade or sweep of a sonar beam. While some of these mysteries may eventually be solved by a future breakthrough, a newly translated text, or an overlooked detail in the soil, others might forever linger in the realm of tantalizing speculation. And perhaps that is their greatest gift. These enduring questions fuel our collective imagination and drive the relentless human urge to explore, to dig deeper, and to look at the familiar landscape of history with fresh, questioning eyes. Remember, the story of who we are is written not only by the evidence we manage to find, but equally by the courage of the questions we dare to ask. If this journey has sparked a new curiosity within you, we encourage you to delve deeper, to question comfortable narratives, and to keep wondering about the silent chapters of our shared human story. We would love to hear which of these anomalies fascinates you the most, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. For more journeys into the unexplained corners of our world, be sure to subscribe.